So, welcome today. This is your soundbite on all things payment remittance. This is a soundbite, so it's only about 20 minutes long. This is to just give you a brief overview over one of the topics that we find to be extremely popular with questions on our employers. So, today I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to do an eSERS demo on all of the things for payment remittance. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so when you log into eSERS, this is your home screen. A lot of you are familiar with this. And after you upload your files into eSERS, you will get one of two messages. You will get a message saying that your file has been uploaded successfully and everything's been processed, or you'll get another email saying your file has been uploaded successfully, but there are errors or warnings that need to be addressed before you can submit this file for posting. So once your file has been successfully posted, you have to go into the payment remittance application to make your payment. Anything that requires a payment in eSERS or anything that's being sent to SERS as a form of a payment for employers, a payment remittance is required to be submitted on behalf of that payment, just so we know what the money is for and where to allocate it. So after you upload your files or you manually enter them, you don't always have to use the upload. Sometimes you have to, you only have one or two people and you just manually enter them, or your school district where you just manually enter them, you don't have the capacity to upload files, and that's totally fine too. So once your files have been successfully posted, you'll go into the payment remittance application. And in the screen, this is the payment remittance home screen. So you are able to create a new payment remittance by clicking new payment remittance. In this payment remittance history, it's going to give you up to 5 pages of previous payment remittances that have been submitted on behalf of your school district. But you can always switch the status. So you have a status here. So you can sort this list by status, and that will help give you more information. If you have remittance ID information and you don't want to sort through this list, you can click on the advanced search option. And if you have the remittance ID, you can enter that here. Or you can enter in your check reference number if you've submitted a check, or if you have like an ACH credit reference number. If you submitted a credit memo and you're trying to find information on that, you can enter in the credit memo ID. Any additional information that you have for an advanced search, you can go ahead and use this option. But today what we're going to do is we are going to make a payment. So to make a payment, you're going to click on New Payment Remittance. And when you click New Payment Remittance, this is your payment remittance screen. You have your credit memos here. You have unpaid liabilities. So these are liabilities that still need to be paid. And this is your liabilities to pay panel. So when we go to make a payment, we want to go to the unpaid liabilities panel and we want to find the liability that we want to pay. So when you select your liability that you want to pay, so we're going to pay employee contributions with this remittance. But as I'm looking at this remaining balance, I'm seeing that it's $1,030. But if I'm looking at my internal system as the employer, it shows that I owe $1,020. So that's showing the employer that there's something going on with this liability, that because eSERS doesn't match my system. So at this point, we encourage employers to give us a phone call so that we can help you. But normally when this happens, it's because there's an adjustment that needs to be done. Someone had dock days and it didn't transfer over on your regular file. So an adjustment file needs to be entered in at that point. So what we're going to do, I've already uploaded my adjustment file because this is a soundbite, so I'm trying to keep it as quick and concise as possible. So let's say we've done all the research, we found out who we docked, we submitted the adjustment file, and we've submitted it. So when you do an adjustment outside of your regular file, you will create a credit memo if you are removing money from that member's account. So when you do that, you'll find it in your credit memo panel. And when applying a credit memo, you can only apply one at a time. You have to do employee credit memos to employee liabilities, and the same with the employer. So what we're going to do, because we realize that this remaining balance doesn't match our system records, so we're going to apply this $10 credit memo because we uploaded the adjustment file. Before I did this, we uploaded the adjustment file, and now we have to apply this $10 to the liability so that the remaining balance will show what my system shows I owe, because you all have to reconcile at the end of the day. So what you want to do is you want to type in $10 in the credit amount to use field for the employee credit memo. Once you've done that, and you don't have to do a negative sign because eSERS knows that this is a credit memo. So you'll be applying this to the liability. So once you've done this, you want to go to the unpaid liabilities panel, and you want to check mark the box next to the liability that you want to apply your credit memo to. So in this instance, our pay date was 7/23 for a biweekly one cycle code. This is my liability for 7/23 with a biweekly one cycle code. Sometimes that information won't always, typically it matches, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. So you select this checkbox and you hit add selected to pay. Now, what this does is it moves your liability down to the liabilities to pay panel. Now, this is really important because this is where sometimes our employers get a little confused on the credit memo process. We are only applying credit memos at this point in time. We aren't paying our liability amount that we show we owe. We're just applying $10. So what we want to do is we want to take this credit memo amount and we want to enter it in this payment amount, so $10, okay? Once you've entered in your credit memo amount, you're going to hit next. And when you do that, that takes you to the final payment screen where you want to review this information. You're seeing that you're applying a $10 credit memo to this liability, and you want to hit finish and submit. When you do that, it takes you back to the payment remittance home screen, and it shows that your $10 credit memo amount has processed right away. You don't have to wait for it to come out of pending status. It will apply and it will process right away. So now we need to go ahead and go back into our payment remittance by clicking New Payment Remittance. At this point in time, the employer would go ahead and apply the employer credit memo so that you would apply the employer credit memo to the employer liability, and you would go forth from there. Even if you're a foundation deduction district, we want you to apply your employer credit memos. We're not going to cover that today. There's another tutorial on applying credit memos, but this is a huge step when it comes to the payment remittance process. So once we've applied all of our credit memos, we want to make our payment. So earlier, we had realized that the employee contributions liability amount was $1,030. And in this scenario, we realized that there was a $10 credit memo that we needed to apply. So once we've applied that credit memo, our remaining balance now reflects that $10 credit memo. So it's now less $10. So theoretically, in the perfect world, this remaining balance now reflects what you would show on your end based off of your payroll software. So we are good to go on making our payment. So what you want to do is you want to select the liability that you want to pay, and you want to click Add Selected to Pay. When you do that, that moves your liability down to the liabilities to pay panel. It's as easy as that. But let me show you something. Let me remove this. We understand that our employers are extremely busy. So you're trying to just get this done so that you can move on to maybe STRS or some other benefit issues that you have to deal with. You may be running into a meeting and you just need to make a payment really quick. So we understand that we are a small piece of your puzzle. But let me show you expected liability. So we want to pay employee contributions for a 7/23 pay date with the cycle code of biweekly one. I'm going to add expected liability, and I'm going to go ahead and make my payment. The thing about eSERS is that it will accept a short payment. It will not accept an overpayment, but it will accept a short payment. So in my rush to get this done, if you've noticed, I've made a small little mistake. And this little mistake is employer contributions when I'm trying to pay my employee contributions. So if I were to type in my employee contribution amount here, this is clearly uh, a lesser payment than the employer contributions listed up here. So what will happen is I don't realize that I have chosen employer contributions. I've gone through all of the steps for the payment remittance, and I go about my day. And then 5 business days from now, I start receiving penalty notifications saying that I never paid my employee contributions. So at this point, clearly eSERS wouldn't issue a penalty based off of this due to the error. But what I'm trying to show you is that we don't want our employers using expected liability, especially since the liability is already here. And you're probably thinking, well, if you don't want us using it, then why is it there? And the reason that it's there is that sometimes there are instances where you need to create a liability that is not showing in the unpaid liabilities panel. If that happens, you would call employer services first, and we would walk you through the process to make sure that the expected liability has been entered in correctly. Because what happens is with an expected liability, a liability ID isn't created. And so the payment that you send in doesn't always automatically allocate, or sometimes it's entered in incorrectly. So we just want to make sure that we are walking you through the process. But let's go ahead and do Happy Path. We are ready to make our payment. So what you want to do is you want to check mark the box next to the liability you want to pay. You click Add Selected to Pay. It moves your liability down to the Liabilities to Pay panel. And since we've already done our adjustment, we've verified that this remaining balance is the correct amount. We're going to type in our payment amount of $1,020. When you do that, you want to scroll up to the top and hit Next. What this is going to do, it's going to take you to the payment screen where you tell eSERS how you're making your payment. And you have 3 options. You have ACH debit, checks, and other EFT. The nice thing about ACH debit is that not only are you submitting your payment remittance to eSERS, but you're also submitting your payment. Because those of you that have access to ACH debit through eSERS and that you've already set up your school for it, you are submitting the payment remittance, which is required, and the payment, which is also required, in one step. If you were to send a check, you'd fill out your payment remittance and then you'd mail the check to us and hope that we receive it on time. And with other EFT, you have to contact your bank to set up the wire to have that money transmitted to us. So for this training purpose, I'm going to use ACH debit because that's our preferred method of payment. So once you choose your new payment type from the dropdown, you click Add New Payment. When you do that, a line will appear, and you just have to complete the line according to the type of payment that you're doing. So what I want to do, oh, well, I never set up a bank account. Of course I didn't. Okay, so hold on just a minute. If you run into this, this is what you can do. You can go to Bank Account Maintenance. Going to select a new bank. You're getting additional training today. Oh, shoot. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have created bank really quick. I'm sorry, I thought I had done it before we did anything. Okay, so now I'm going to go to payment remittance and I'm going to start the process all over again. Normally what happens is there would be a floppy disk here and you could just go back to the last screen that you were in, but for whatever reason, eSERS is not playing nice with me today. So again, we are making our payment. I'm going to check mark the box next to the liability I want to pay, click Add Selected to Pay, type in the payment amount that you want to make. Click Next at the top of the screen. Today we are choosing ACH debit. Click Add New Payment. For this ACH debit, I'm going to choose the bank account that I just created. And the nice thing about the ACH debit, is that you don't have to wait for us to approve anything. It's your information that you've entered into your system through eSERS, so it would be available to you right away. So those of you that are in this soundbite today that haven't signed up for ACH debit, maybe this is a little push forward on you doing ACH debit. So what you want to do is you want to enter in your payment amount, and then eSERS will automatically move you to the next available payment date. The nice thing about eSERS is that I know that some school districts with their employee contributions, their payment, their one liability is split up between two different bank accounts, because you'll have your general bank account and sometimes you have individuals on your file that get pickup on pickup and the board pays that portion, but it's still considered an employee liability. You can do one payment remittance for the two payments as long as they're the same payment type. So let's say $1,000 comes out of the budget account. And in this case, the school district would have two checking accounts. But to create a second line, you would choose ACH debit again and click Add New Payment. So what this does is it creates a second line where you can choose the second bank account. So we're going to do budget again for the remaining $20, but I hope you understand that you would choose your board account or whatever you have it labeled to have that second portion of that liability to come out of that checking account or savings account. So once you've entered in your information, you're going to hit Next. This is your final payment screen. Before you hit Finish and Submit, you just want to review the information on the screen and make sure that it's as accurate as possible. Once you've done that, don't print this screen off. We have found that some of our employers print this screen off and then they move on to the next thing. Maybe they get distracted by an employee coming up to talk to them, their phone rings, they get an email, all of that stuff. There's nothing on the screen that's going to be helpful to you if you have questions for us. So what I want you to do is before you print anything off, hit Finish and Submit. When you hit Finish and Submit, it takes you to the payment remittance home screen. And for those of you that want to print off images of your final payment, what you want to do is in this payment remittance history panel, you want to click on the remittance ID for the pending payment that we just submitted. So by clicking on this remittance ID, this is the same as the Finish and Submit screen, but you have a remittance ID here. And with this remittance ID, if you call us and you have any questions and we ask you what your remittance ID is, you're able to provide that information to us. This remittance ID is also proof to you that you submitted your payment. So the previous screen, the Finish and Submit screen, does not have a remittance ID. So if you print off that screen, there's no confirmation on that screen to show you that you actually submitted your payment correctly. So for those of you that want to print this off, this is the screen that you want. So again, you want the payment remittance history panel and click on your remittance ID, and this is the screen you want. So before I let you go, I want to show you one more thing. Let's say that our remittance status is still pending and we realize that we've made a mistake on our payment remittance. You have two options. You can click on this correct payment remittance button. If you click on that remittance ID, I will say that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I've just had really bad luck trying to correct a payment remittance by clicking this button. So my suggestion to you, you realize that you've made a mistake on your payment remittance and it's still pending. If it's processed, you're going to have to give us a phone call. But if it's still pending, you still have the option to change your payment remittance. So what you want to do is you want to check mark this box and click void. When you click void, it voids your payment remittance. But for those of you that use ACH debit, not only did you void your payment remittance, but you voided your payment. So to double check to make sure that your payment has voided, you want to go to bank account maintenance. And in this bank account maintenance screen, it's going to show all of our pending payments from the approved ACH debit bank account. So I'm going to click on this ACH debit ID, and it's showing me that my status is void. So this payment will not be pulled from my bank account. So what you'll have to do if you void your payment remittance, you're going to have to go back in and submit your payment remittance with the corrections that needed to be made. And I believe that's all I have. Michelle, did I cover everything for payment remittance?
Yes, you did. Just since we bumped into bank account maintenance, will you show them the refund option real quick? Sorry,
Yes,
couldn't help
yes,
it.
yes, yes. So for those school districts, this doesn't apply to contractors, unfortunately. So if I have any contractors in here today, I apologize. This isn't in reference to you. But for those of you that do use ACH debit, um, you may have seen in our special notice for statement and surcharge, you may have noticed that we now have an electronic refund option. So we now can issue electronic refunds back to the school district as opposed to mailing you a check, especially for your employer statement. It might be nice just to have the electronic deposit back into the account. So what you do, if this is an option that you would like, you go to bank account maintenance and you select the bank ID for the bank account that you would like your refunds issued to. We can only have one bank account per school district selected to be a refund account. But to do that, you click on Bank ID, and we now have this refund account checkbox. So if you would like to have refunds issued back to the school district electronically, you would select the bank account that you would like the bank account to be, or the bank account to receive the electronic refunds. You check mark this box and you hit save. Once you have check marked this box, this bank account has been flagged as an electronic refund account, and you will receive your refunds electronically in this bank account going forward. So that is a new feature that we offer for our school districts and electronic refunds. So are there any questions so far or at all?
Yep, no questions in the chat today.
Okay, well, this is it. We are 3 minutes over. Thank you for joining us today on your soundbite for all things payment remittance. If you have any questions, just email us at employerservices@ohsers.org. Thank you so much and have a nice day.